chư ta so ye cha nam la chang chun pan de dan ni ga su chi da ye jin so ye so nan ye zhe la pin che san pa ra sho san ye chư na so ye cha nam la chang chun pan de dan ni ga su chi da ye jin so ye be so nan ye I take refuge in Tower Enlightened, in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. So let's think about that a moment. Why we need to go for refuge to the Buddha Dhamma and Sangha before, this session. Why do we need to generate bodhicitta? Why not just refuge? Why not just bodhicitta? Why not just launch into the session? I was listening to Yumiken Rinpoche, Losang Champa recently, and he was very emphatic, very clear that the purpose of achieving enlightenment, and so the purpose of, like this series of talks and meditation so on that we're going to be doing the next few weeks, is to repay the kindness of the sentient beings. So of course this is all that kind of idea makes sense when you think of past lives and how they've been beginningless past lives, so that we have been human beings countless times, and anyway, so all sentient beings have been our mother countless times and taking care of us with such kindness and with such affection, giving us life, preserving our life, making our lives good, teaching us, bringing us up well. And of course, sometimes it goes wrong, but generally speaking, it's like that. And then if after helping us so much and being so kind to us, they were okay, everything was okay, that then, we might not talk about repaying the kindness. When you think about refuge, which means going for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, that makes you think about what you're going to refuge from, what you're looking to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha to protect you from. And so it makes you start thinking about the suffering of psychic existence, especially the lower realms, but wherever you're born, in psychic existence, wherever you are, whoever you are, then you're still caught up in suffering, so much suffering, so much pain. So that's like one's own situation, and also all other sentient beings. They're also caught up in that, can't escape from that except by developing the wisdom that will allow them to really change their minds, just like we can only really escape our problems by developing the wisdom that will make that possible, because all of those problems, they come from ignorance about the nature of reality. Once you have that ignorance, and what that comes down to is having a sense of I, which is completely wrong, completely mistaken. But then based on that attachment to the things that I like, anger towards things I don't like, towards the people that I think are harming me, preventing me from experiencing happiness, then based on that, when your mind is controlled by things like that, anger, attachment, then it's almost inevitable. You end up saying and doing things which are very destructive, and then you have to experience suffering as a result, and that's samsara. We want happiness. We, meaning, just like myself, all sentient beings want happiness, but not really knowing what it is we need to do to find happiness. We end up doing nothing but creating the cause for suffering, which is what we don't want. So going for refuge makes you think about that, and it makes you see that there is really something to do. That kindness does need to be repaid by helping them, the sentient beings, because they really do need our help. Just like I'm stuck in this swamp of samsara, so they are. So then it's my job, my responsibility to to help them now that they need help. They helped me so much. They were so kind to me. Now I have to repay that. And that's why I want to achieve enlightenment, because right now there's not much I can do, even for myself. I don't really know what to do. Still got a long way to go in terms of developing the understanding and the wisdom to even be able to solve my own problems, let alone countless other sentient beings. But if I achieve enlightenment, then that will be the best. My own mind will be in the best state to be able to help others. And so spending time learning about the stage of the path that lead to enlightenment, that's also repaying the kindness. So anyway, please spend a couple of minutes thinking about that, so you have a real, like Bodhichitta motivation for this morning, meaning that you see and you feel very deeply the purpose of this morning, this hour and a half together, is to help towards achieving enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, in order to repay the kindness of all the sentient beings. Well, so this is being called the Nectar Bodhichitta, and yeah, I mean, actually, I don't think it was my idea to call it, but I think it's a good title anyway, Bodhichitta. So the Nectar Bodhichitta, meaning Bodhichitta is like nectar, but actually, yeah, I don't know. For us, normally, if you think of nectar, it's like the what the bees and the hummingbirds take out of the flowers. So I think it means a bit more than that. So anyway, the Tibetan word Tutsi, then the Sanskrit word Amrita. Anyway, it's really got the idea of something which cures the mind, heals the mind, and Bodhicitta does heal the mind. So it's nectar for the mind. And this is part two, because it's we spent 6 weeks on it previously, and We didn't get to the end of the topic, and I think we might get to the end of it this time, but not 100% sure. So we've got 5 sessions. So so this is mainly about bodhicitta then, how to meditate on bodhicitta, how to generate bodhicitta, as we say, in other words, how to turn your mind into bodhicitta. That means it's bodhicitta, bodhi, awakening, citta, the mind. So the mind intent on achieving enlightenment for the sake of sentient beings. Bodhicitta, so transforming one's mind into that. So that not just like a nice idea, but where you feel really very deeply from the heart, this is something I really need to do. And of course, it is going to help if you understand that it's possible. If you don't think it's possible, then I'm not quite sure you would want to spend any time with bodhicitta if you didn't think it was possible to achieve enlightenment. For me, actually, well, I mean, of course, it makes a huge difference that my teachers, who I have a lot of faith in and respect for, they actually seem to embody bodhicitta. Anyway, so they all say it's possible. So that makes a difference, If His Holiness says enlightenment is possible, His Holiness is a pretty amazing person. Somebody you take seriously. However, on a deeper level than that, I think it's good to have it, to have the understanding of how it's possible, not just believing it's possible. And for me, what helps a lot is, number one, thinking about the nature of the mind, the clear and knowing, clear-like nature of the mind, which means recognizing that, well, anyway, to cut a long story short, those destructive factors of the mind, which seem to be so much part of the mind that you can't imagine being free of them, and that makes enlightenment seem impossible. When they talk about enlightenment meaning a state where you're free of all faults of the mind, free of all limitations, that so understanding the nature of mind, understanding the clear and knowing nature of mind means understanding that those are not they're not a fixed part of the mind, that the mind at its core is something pure, just like just like a glass of dirty water where the dirt is not actually part of the water. They're separate things. They're mixed, but there's sort of like water which is more dirty, less dirty. So, and even in our own experience, bring it back to the mind. There are times when our mind seems to be more polluted, less polluted. So things change. They're shifting all the time, right? So there's something. They're not so rigid. When you start thinking about that, and you start beginning to see that they're not something kind of rigid and fixed. And then, no matter how much you might be convinced that the dirt in the water isn't really part of the water, you'd still be left with the question, well, yeah, but how do I get it out? How do I get that dirt out? And that's where, meditating on, the ultimate nature of reality, emptiness, comes in. So understanding, your own true nature, so that you see that the normal way of thinking is completely incorrect, is a mistake, then you begin to see that all of that whole edifice of the other mental fictions that are based on it founded on that mistake, well, they're also a mistake. So, and then meditating on emptiness, the ultimate nature of reality, is like light and dark or hot and cold. You know, the more the light of that wisdom grows, the more the darkness of the ignorance is diminished. And once there's no ignorance, ultimately no ignorance, then all of those mental fictions that are based on it, they're also going to come to an end. Yeah. So, you know, meditating on emptiness helped me to understand that it's actually it is possible to do something. You can do something that makes enlightenment possible. Also, anyway, so that's a whole big topic, isn't it? Obviously, nice idea, but also good to meditate on. So then, when you meditate on it, you actually become more convinced from your own experience, not just more convinced by, you know, if you tell yourself often enough, then you're going to be convinced, but, you know, actually getting convinced from the experience, your own personal experience. So yeah, so anyway, there for meditating on Bodhichitta, there are two ways. There's one which is called the Gyundeming Dun, the 7-part instruction, cause and effect instruction. It sounds a bit dry, really, but you know, it's just based on the idea that there's an actual fixed order of steps to go through, building up to Bodhicitta. And so and the other one is called equalizing, exchanging self and others. So generating Bodhicitta, meditating on Bodhicitta by the technique of equalizing, exchanging self and others. So we more or less finished, but not quite that first one. And I wanted to go back a bit because I've been learning in the last few weeks between this morning and the last time we were together that it really is worth continuing to learn, attend teachings and so on. So that's what I've been doing to some degree in between times, and I heard some things that were very interesting. So here's one. It's to do with the equanimity meditation. So we don't have to go through the whole of that. Yeah. So the equanimity meditation is on page 200. And you might remember, those of you who were here for the previous series, there was something that I was sort of like found a bit kind of like puzzling. Where is it? It's in the, should be in the second paragraph down. I'll read it out anyway. So as for the order of meditation, because it will more easily arise, initially, take as your object of attention a neutral person who has neither helped nor harmed you, and develop an equanimous mind through eliminating attachment and anger. So here's what I found puzzling. Because if I think about it, the way equanimity has been explained to me, you know, like many times, I think it's like with equanimity, we talk about friend, enemy, and stranger. The friend is the one who helps you, and you're attached to. The enemy is one that harms you, that you get angry with. The neutral person is the one that neither harms you nor helps you, so you don't really feel, you feel kind of like indifferent about them. I feel like I've heard it explained to me many times like that. And then coming across this statement, once you what was it again? When an equanimous mind towards that person has developed. Sorry, no, it's in the first sentence, isn't it? A neutral person who has neither helped nor harmed you, and develop an equanimous mind through eliminating attachment and anger. That just didn't make sense to me. But what, without going into why it didn't make sense,
here's what I heard Kishingawa Drapa say, and it makes so much sense, and it also helps to make this it helps to make this make sense, which is he made the point, and I think it's quite true actually. It's not so clear cut that you've got the friend is the one that's helped you, and you therefore you're attached to. It's not as simple as that. And it's same with the other two as well. The anger with the enemy and the indifference towards the neutral person. The friend, yeah, that's right. Yeah, and because especially like later on, Jeremy Lama Tsongkhapa makes the point. We're not sort of like negating the existence of friend, enemy, and stranger. What we're trying to do is overcome the attachment, anger, and ignorance towards them. Okay, so the person. So let's see the neutral person. Okay, since it starts off with the neutral person. The neutral person is the one that doesn't harm you or help you, right? You know them, but they don't harm you. They don't help you. So now this is the example. Let's see if it works for you. It kind of works for me. The example that Gishingawan Drapa gave, talking about this. He said, suppose you're watching a football match, right? Now, these people who are playing in the football match, they are what we would call strangers, if you like, like people that haven't hurt you and haven't harmed you, neither one or the other. But don't, I mean, I think most of us, we kind of like, especially if it's your team, right? But even if it's not your team, quite often if you're going to watch a football match, you choose the one that you want to win, right? So then you feel really close to one side and really kind of like against the other side. So in other words, we make these we do make differences between the people that are neither harming us or helping us. We still make differences, and some of them will feel attachment towards, and some will feel anger towards, and some will feel indifference towards. Isn't that true? And actually, even amongst now, if you go on to, it suggests going on to the friends, right? Friends and relatives. So immediately when we say friends and relatives, you think of, oh, these are the people that I like. So actually here, when it's talking about friends, it's talking about the people that help you. And amongst the people that help you, there could be some of them that you really don't like. You might even resent the fact that they're helping you. You don't want somebody like this helping me, you know? Maybe I don't need help. They don't need to help me, but they are helping you. So you don't like them. If something bad were to happen, you might actually be quite pleased. These are people that are helping you. So again, even with the people that are helping, we can make this difference that we feel attached towards some of them, angry towards some of them, and indifferent towards others. And the same with the people that are harming us. Maybe not so easy to see. You'd think people that are harming you, that you would dislike them and be angry towards all of them, but maybe not always. People that are harming you, but still you're attached to them. Maybe somebody who you know is like taking your things, taking your money, but you still feel this kind of like attachment towards them. It can happen, can't it? So anyway, that's an idea to think about. This is the way he explained it, and I feel that is quite helpful, and it also does make sense of this. What Lama Tsongkhapa says here about developing an equanimous mind through eliminating attachment and anger towards the neutral people. And the same would apply for the friends and enemies. So I feel that's in a way, it's quite surprising that I never heard it before, but anyway, so it's like that, and like I said, that's one of the benefits of listening again and again, continuing to learn. you hear things that help you to, get more clarity. That's that thing. Yeah. There was one thing, a couple of other things I thought it'd be nice to just mention since they did come up when we were looking at this before. Okay, so one is, well, yeah, I'll just mention it anyway. Just why not? You remember I mentioned when we were talking about equanimity, I did mention the way that it's the equanimity prayer, if you like, is formulated in some of the practices we do. Like there's the Vajrayana one where it talks about wanting all sentient beings to abide in equanimity, free of the eight worldly dharmas, and grasping at objects and minds as being truly existent. So Gyumi Rinpoche, Losang Jampa, so he was saying, oh, this is called great equanimity. So there is such a thing as great equanimity. So that's just by the way, he just mentioned that. That's one thing. And then something that I was very pleased to hear, because I'm pretty sure I mentioned while we were talking about equanimity, we were talking about the four limitless thoughts. So there's limitless, you've got limitless equanimity. When we talk about the four limitless thoughts, or the four immeasurables, one of them is called immeasurable equanimity. And in that case, you're wanting all sentient beings to have equanimity. It's not towards you. It's not about you developing equanimity. It's wanting all sentient beings to, live in a state of equanimity, right? Whereas here, it's ourselves that we're trying to develop that equanimity so that we can live in equanimity. So then we ended up talking about the four immeasurable, the thoughts, four limitless thoughts. So there's so in the long version anyway, it starts off with limitless equanimity. Then after that, limitless love. So wanting all sentient beings to have happiness, the cause of happiness. So Joseph Rinpoche always used to insist that what this meant is, may all sentient beings have the happiness of enlightenment and the causes of enlightenment. When you're wishing for happiness for the mother sentient beings, of course you want the best happiness, and that's the best happiness. You don't want them to simply have ordinary happiness. That might be something that comes on by the way, but what you really want for them is the happiness of enlightenment. Then to be free of suffering. That's the third one. So that's limitless compassion, wanting all sentient beings to be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. And then the fourth one, which I always used to find, always sort of like some kind of niggling in the mind, because it says, may all sentient beings, how wonderful it would be. It starts off, how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings could be, if only how wonderful it would be if they would never be separated from happiness, free of suffering. And I always thought to myself, that seems to be part of the other two. Why mention it separately? And I'm pretty sure I mentioned that, last winter in Bodh Gaya, there was this conference which I was able to attend, and one of the talks was about this actually, and he described it as a meditation on basically rejoicing. That was how he described it. I'd never heard of it like that before. And so, rejoicing basically, so when people are experiencing happiness, thinking how wonderful that is. So he explained it as meaning that even though when you look at the wording, it doesn't really
look exactly like that. So I would never have guessed personally, but so he explained it like that. So in their tradition, this was not a Gelugpa monk, it was a Theravadin monk. He explained it like that. And then Gyumi Khenzo Rinpoche, when he was explaining the four limitless thoughts, because it comes up in the Vajrayana practice, the four immeasurable thoughts there, he said it means you're thinking, so Gawala, how wonderful, how amazing that is, how fantastic. So looking at the happiness that sentient beings are experiencing, and actually, even if it's what we call, like samsaric happiness, because, you don't want to, is only natural. I mean, like what people want, they don't understand about mostly, the happiness of liberation and enlightenment. What they want and at least what they feel is good is what we would call samsaric happiness, limited happiness which turns into suffering eventually, but at least it's what they want. So, it's better for us to be human beings than to be in the lower realms. It's better to be a god, generally, than being in the lower realms. There's no good saying that, well, it's all samsara, so everybody might as well be in the lower realms or something like that. It's not like that. So anyway, very clearly, there's the Kawala. So how wonderful, how amazing, how fantastic that is. You see sentient beings experiencing even the ordinary happiness, thinking that's just so wonderful. Just really, it's the same as rejoicing, I guess. But anyway, so I think that's, for me, this is very, very useful, very helpful. Okay. So I think that's about what about it in terms of what I wanted to catch up on. Have to skip down several pages. I think where we got to was page 207, where it says meditating on the extraordinary attitude. So it'll be for carrying on with that. If we spend a few minutes thinking about this, then paying the kindness and the meaning of meditating on equanimity.
So let's carry on. So page 207. So the steps we've gone through already of the 7, recognizing all sentient beings as one's mother, then thinking about their kindness, paying the kindness, then the heartwarming love, pleasing love, the mind to which all sentient beings appear in a very pleasing way, heartwarming. Then after that, compassion, and now the 6th of the 7, meditating on the extraordinary attitude. So it says, after meditating on love and compassion in this manner, finally you will think. So these are not so much like you will, it's more like advice about about what to do, So you've meditated on love and compassion, just like explained above. Then after that, it says, you need, anyway, so let me read it out like it says in the text. So you think, alas, if these sentient beings who are pleasant and dear to me, pleasing and dear to me, pleasing and so dear to me, are thus deprived of happiness, so they really have no happiness, no real happiness, and tormented by suffering. How can I give them happiness? How can I free them from suffering? So you take, in this way, you're taking upon yourself the responsibility to liberate them. Not just liberate them, but lead them to happiness, the happiness of enlightenment. And you train your mind at least through the mere words. So you train your mind, and at least you're going to say the words until gradually it becomes more than just words and becomes really heartfelt. So then Lama Tsongkhapa talks about something quite important, which is that although this was mentioned briefly, so this did come up, this idea, I'm going to free all sentient beings from suffering. I'm going to lead them to happiness in order to repay their kindness. In the context of repaying the kindness, it's shown here that love and compassion that think how wonderful it would be if they were to meet happiness and how wonderful it would be if they were free from suffering are not enough. So it did come up before, but this here, the point is being made, just wanting them to be happy, just wanting them to be free of suffering, that's not enough. This is because you need to generate the love and compassion that is capable of inducing the thought, I myself will accomplish the happiness and benefit of sentient beings. So, in other words, you have to, at a certain, well, you have to, maybe it wouldn't happen naturally, so you have to introduce into your mind another ingredient, which is, is when my mother needs help, it's not enough if I just think how wonderful it would be if she didn't have this problem. I've got to do something. I'm the child, I have to do something. It's not just enough to want it. I have to actually take responsibility. So that the idea of taking responsibility comes up. Then, as is taught in the first stage of meditation, so that's just I don't know how that crept in, but it's not the first one. There's a anyway. So there's the 3 texts called the Stages of Meditation, authored by Kamalashila. Actually, he's a great master, and these are very important texts which are considered, treatises, not just Tibetan commentaries, treatises by Indian masters, but they were actually written Tibet. He came to Tibet. He was invited to Tibet. Stayed many years there. So these are pretty amazing texts, actually. His Holiness often used to teach them. They're really very good. So anyway, so Kamal actually says so it's the middle one anyway, not the first one. It actually says in the Tibetan, the Parva, middle one. And in another translation where it's got Gishi Jambakyatso's commentary, it's very clear. It says middle in English as well. So the middle stage of meditation, I think the middle stage of meditation has been translated into English with some commentary by His Holiness. It might even be called stages of meditation or something. You should practice it continuously and recollect it during all your activities, after sessions and so forth, not just during meditation sessions. So if you really want to develop this thought, actually, this is probably, like any meditation you do, if you really want to get the experience, and you don't just do the meditation and after the meditation you forget about it. You think about it, coming, going, sitting down, and so on, whenever you get the chance. Okay, so that's the extraordinary attitude. So the extraordinary attitude is when you take responsibility. And so when we talk about the extraordinary attitude, there's two types of extraordinary attitude. One, which is loving kindness that takes responsibility, and then the other is the great compassion, which takes responsibility. So they talk about the loving kindness whose nature is the the extraordinary attitude which is in the nature of loving kindness, and the extraordinary attitude which is in the nature of compassion. So those two aspects. Then training in the mind, striving for enlightenment. Once you are encouraged by the steps explained so far, and realize that enlightenment is necessary for the welfare of others, you'll also develop the desire to attain it. However, that in itself is not sufficient. So that's interesting, actually, because very often when they talk about how you end up developing bodhicitta in this way, at this point they'll say, once you've got the extraordinary attitude, you start thinking to yourself, well, I'm happy to take responsibility, but actually I can't do anything at the moment. But if I achieve enlightenment, I will be able to, like we were saying at the beginning of this session. So I have to achieve enlightenment, like any kind of like worldly being, like worldly gods and so on. If they're not really able to help sentient beings, they're stuck in samsara the same as the rest of us. They're very powerful and clever, maybe, but that wouldn't be worthwhile. I don't need to become a powerful god in order to be able to help with sentient beings, because they can't. Even like an arhat, free from samsara, very helpful if you've got a teacher who's an arhat for many things, learning about emptiness. They can teach from experience, but still, and they are limited. There's a limit to how much they can help sentient beings if they want to. But anyway, and also like bodhisattva, even a high level of bodhisattva, they're still limited. They're still training. So best is enlightenment. And she doesn't mention that so much here. It's not expressed so clearly here, but anyway. So once you're encouraged by the steps explained so far and realize that enlightenment is necessary for the welfare of others, you'll also develop the desire to attain it. However, that in itself is not sufficient. At the beginning, you must increase your faith through thinking about the excellent qualities of the exalted body So the species or divine and enlightened activities as they were explained above in the context of going for refuge. So this is very important, isn't it? You don't often hear that. So in other words, it's one thing, thinking, okay, well, I have to achieve enlightenment, but it gets stronger and deeper, that thought, when you're wanting to achieve enlightenment by thinking about the qualities of enlightenment. Then, since that faith is set out as the base for your aspiration, so that's normally how things are explained. It like anything, you need faith, and normally, maybe in certain circumstances, there's a role for blind faith, but generally speaking, blind faith means kind of faith where you have no understanding. So the faith that he's talking about here would be one that's based on understanding, and that would come by thinking about the benefits. So, like with calm abiding, as we see later on, and you might have already heard, teachings on that one of the most important factors to really get the energy that you need to cultivate calm abiding, it starts off with faith by thinking about the benefits. And when you understand the benefits, then you think, wow, that's really amazing. So that's the faith, it's really amazing how amazing that is. Then the aspiration, because, like, well, if that's so amazing, then of course I want that. That's what he's saying. Since that faith is said to act as the basis for your aspiration, you generate the wish to attain those qualities from the depths of your heart. So having thought about the benefits, you aspire for them, and aspiring for them on the basis of, wanting to help sentient beings, which, has already been part of the previous meditations, that will induce certainty that the achievement of omniscience is indispensable also for your own welfare, whatever that is meant to mean here. Generally speaking, this term, your own welfare. So there's one's own welfare and the welfare of others. So the main thing, is you want to be able to teach. That would be the main way to help sentient beings. There would be other ways, like appearing in a way that is a good example, that inspires people and so on. But, the main thing to teach, because by teaching, then people, then, the sentient beings, if they're open to being taught, then they begin to understand how, what they have to do in order to achieve enlightenment. Because, of course, you can't enlighten people, you can't liberate people. We talk about it, liberating or countless sentient beings and so on, but what it actually means is showing them the way. And showing them the way and showing them that they have to do it themselves. They have to put the effort in, they have to get the understanding through effort, and then meditate and gradually achieve the results. So that's the main thing. And you can't do that unless your own mind is perfected. So, I think we can say, roughly speaking, the perfection of your own mind, the perfection of yourself as a person, that's your own welfare. Why is it called your own welfare? It's because directly, that's no help to anybody. Indirectly is very helpful, because when you turn that into teaching and guiding sentient beings in various ways, that's what really helps them. But that won't happen if you haven't. So that's the welfare of others. And that's not going to happen unless you've taken care of your own welfare. So own welfare, welfare of others, has that kind of connotation. So achievement of omniscience is indispensable even for your own welfare. So, if you achieve, that all-knowing kind of wisdom and so forth, those inequalities, then your own welfare is perfectly taken care of. Then you'll be able to perfectly take care of the welfare of others, right? So if we spend a couple of minutes thinking about that, main thing being, so you've taken responsibility And because you've taken responsibility, you want to achieve enlightenment. How that works, how those fit together. Then the last thing on, well, in this chapter anyway, the way the book is arranged, before we go on to the next way of meditating on Bodhichitta, page 208, identifying the Bodhichitta is the result of that training. So training in the mind striving for enlightenment actually is Bodhichitta. Mind striving for enlightenment is Bodhichitta. So now, anyway, identifying, so getting a clear idea of what that Bodhichitta is. Identifying the Bodhichitta, that is the result of that training. So the general definition of Bodhicitta is taught in the ornament for clear knowledge. Okay, not clear realization. Most people call it the ornament for clear realizations. This is the Abhisamayalankara by Maitreya, the one which is studied for 5 or 6 years in the monasteries. 5 or 6 years, something like that. Maybe 5 years. So in there it says Bodhicitta is the desire for perfect, complete enlightenment for the welfare of others. Okay, so it is the desire for complete enlightenment for the welfare of others. So this is really worth knowing because there are quite complicated ways of defining bodhicitta. But this is like where it all comes from, where all of those definitions come from. And yeah, so Semgyepani Shendunchir Yana Zobe Chanju De. It's wanting in bodhicitta is wanting enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, for the sake of others. Okay, Shendun Shingi Dungichi, for the sake of all sentient beings. And it's from these two lines that we have the idea that bodhicitta, if you really want to know clearly what bodhicitta is, it's a mind that has two aspirations. There's one which precedes it and one which is simultaneous with it. The one that precedes it is the aspiration for the welfare of others. So that's sort of like a term that covers loving kindness and compassion, basically, with the exceptional attitude. So, in other words, and then the bodhicitta itself is like a mind which has that aspiration for enlightenment. Why does it have that aspiration for enlightenment? In order to be able to benefit sentient beings. So actually, we could say like this: the first 6 steps are for building up this strong aspiration for the welfare of others, to help others, aspiration to help others, aspiration to free all sentient beings from suffering and lead them all to enlightenment. It's for building up that aspiration. And then coming out of that aspiration is, well, how am I going to do it? By achieving enlightenment. So you aspire for enlightenment. Right? Yeah, so that's pretty simple, isn't it? So those 2 aspirations. So one is causal. So that makes sense because of the 7, you've got the 6, which are the causes of the 7th one, the 7th one being bodhicitta. So causal in that sense. And then the result is bodhicitta, and bodhicitta is the mind that has the aspiration for enlightenment. So you'll be able to achieve, you'll be able to really help the sentient beings in the way that you want to. Does that make sense? It's pretty straightforward, isn't it? Yeah. The very last line of this the refuge and bodhicitta prayer that we did at the beginning. I'm pretty sure it's the same order in the English anyway. I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I achieve enlightenment. Through the merit I create by practicing generosity and so forth, may I achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. Let's got those two aspirations. Drola Penje, in order to be able to help all sentient beings. That's the aspiration for the welfare of sentient beings. Sangye Druba Shok, may I achieve enlightenment. That's the other aspiration. So then, bodhicitta, so it is classified. So bodhicitta is classified into two: aspiring and engaging bodhicitta. So I really don't like to call it aspiring bodhicitta for which it should be clear actually, because if it's bodhicitta, it has these two aspirations. So then to call one aspiring bodhicitta, engaging bodhicitta, for me, it sounds like one of them has those two aspirations, or at least one of them, just, what it looks like it's saying. And the other one doesn't have this aspiration, which is completely wrong. Aspiring bodhicitta and engaging bodhicitta, munsem, jusem, they both have the two aspirations. They are both bodhicitta. So they both have these two aspirations. So I always call this wishing bodhicitta, which also makes a lot more sense, because when they talk about the two aspirations, that's the Tibetan word is dunba, aspiration, to aspire for something, dunba. When we talk about what he's calling aspiring bodhicitta, what I'm calling wishing bodhicitta is munsem. Mumba is like when we talk about praying for something. I mean, anyway, it's a completely different word. Wishing, to wish for something, to pray for something, to really want something. Of course, in meaning, those are very similar. But I just I find it a bit off-putting to say aspiring, because then I feel like it's confusing. But anyway, I'm afraid a lot of people call them aspiring and engaging bodhicitta. So you just have to know. It doesn't matter if they do. You don't have to correct them. You don't have to get into an argument with them, like I probably would. You just have to know both of these two types of bodhicitta are actual bodhicitta. It's not like aspiring bodhicitta is not real bodhicitta. The only real bodhicitta is engaging bodhicitta. No, they are both actually bodhicitta, and because they are both actually bodhicitta, they both have the two aspirations. The aspirations for the welfare of others, in other words, the aspiration to help others, which is expressed as loving kindness and compassion, and the aspiration for enlightenment. And so, as taught in Entering the Bodhisattva Way, which follows the marvelous Array Sutra. So this is also very interesting, this verse. Just as one understands the difference between the wish to go and actually going, so the wise should understand the difference between these two accordingly. And this is interesting, actually, because you could easily misunderstand what Shantideva is saying here and think that aspiring bodhicitta, aspiring bodhicitta is wanting to achieve enlightenment. Engaging bodhicitta is actually doing something to achieve it. I mean, well, anyway, so that's completely spelled wrong. I've just realized I've written something out that's completely spelled wrong. So the thing is, you see where it says the difference the difference between wishing to go and actually going. What it's actually saying is there is a difference between one, like let's say, I don't know, let's pick somewhere. Actually, maybe Tahiti. I heard Tahiti is very nice. So wishing to go to Tahiti versus so just wanting, sitting there in your chair, thinking, yeah, that would be nice. I wouldn't mind going to Tahiti, and actually taking steps to going there, literally steps, but also like going online, booking the flight and all that, going to the airport, getting on the plane, all that. All the time that you're doing that, you also want to go to Tahiti, right? So this isn't the in terms of the analogy here, the analogy isn't to show the difference between wanting to go to Tahiti when you're not doing anything and actually doing something. It's wanting to go to Tahiti when you're not doing anything versus wanting to go to Tahiti while while you are actually doing something to get there. So both of them are about wanting to go there. One of them, you're not doing what you need to do to get there, apart from just sitting there and wanting to. I mean, which is also important, because if you don't have that, then you wouldn't start taking the steps. But then the other one is to do with wanting to go there while, in other words, combined with the actual practical actions that you need to take to get there. So the difference between aspiring or wishing bodhicitta and engaging bodhicitta is the bodhicitta which is not combined with the practice of the six perfections, and the bodhicitta which is combined with the six perfections, to put it simply. And you might think to yourself, well, surely anybody who's got bodhicitta, and anybody, which means anybody who's a bodhisattva, surely they're going to be obviously practicing the six perfections. So you can argue about that. But the fact is, anyway, that is the difference between these two types of bodhicitta. And just to give you an example, because it's actually, the way I've just said it is sort of like the simple way of understanding the difference. So I'm going to risk making you confused, but I think it's worth knowing. The just because otherwise you'll be thinking to yourself, always you'll be thinking, aspiring bodhicitta. I mean, how could any bodhisattva have just aspiring bodhicitta, wishing bodhicitta, wanting to achieve enlightenment without practicing six perfections? Maybe the first second that you get bodhicitta is like that. And then for the rest of the path, it's all engaging bodhicitta. So actually, if we go into it a bit deeper, a bit more deeply, I should say, engaging bodhicitta means when the bodhicitta and the practice of six perfections are both what they call manifest. So what that means, when we say manifest, it means like it's actually going on in your mind, so it's like you're practicing generosity, that mind is going on, you're actually engaged in the practice of generosity, so that's manifest in your mind. It's not just there in some kind of like latent form, it's actually there, full-blown kind of thing. And also the wanting to achieve enlightenment, they're both sort of active in your mind. And if either of them is not active, like manifest, active in your mind, then you might, it would be bodhicitta, but it would be wishing bodhicitta. It wouldn't be engaging bodhicitta. because to be engaging bodhicitta, both of them need to be like, active, manifest. And so when would there be a time when they're not both manifest? Well, for example, like the very high level bodhisattvas, what we call Arya bodhisattvas, who are bodhisattvas that have the direct perception of emptiness, when they are absorbed in emptiness, like water poured into water, as they say, completely absorbed, no appearance to their mind of anything apart from emptiness, no appearance to their mind at all of like a me that's meditating and the emptiness I'm meditating on, or anything that's going on around them. Just that is what's happening. They are not even at that point thinking, I'm doing this to achieve enlightenment for the sake of sending me. So the bodhicitta is not active. But they still have bodhicitta, right? There are actually some people, certain great scholars who say, well, no, that bodhisattva doesn't have bodhicitta. At that point, they don't have bodhicitta. They're still a bodhisattva because they've got it in general, but they at that point, they don't have a bodhicitta, something along those lines, which doesn't make sense to me at all anyway. But so, according to, the text that we study, the teachings I've received, so the explanation is the Buddhist, it's a bodhisattva, so of course they have bodhicitta, but that bodhicitta is not in a sense, it's not active, it's not manifest. All that's going on in that bodhisattva is just that meditation on emptiness. No awareness or appearance of anything else apart from emptiness. So therefore their bodhicitta is wishing bodhicitta. Does that make sense? Well, that's good. I think that was going to make things worse, maybe. But anyway, yeah. So that's what it means when we talk about the wishing and or aspiring and engaging bodhicitta. So the difference between wishing bodhicitta and engaging bodhicitta, simply speaking, is the bodhicitta, which is, to put it simply, maybe oversimplifying, but also just sometimes it's useful to have a simple idea of things. When it's combined with a practice of 6 perfections, it's engaging bodhicitta. When it's not, it's wishing bodhicitta. Then it says, although there are many disagreements about this, the first stages of meditation says that aspiring bodhicitta, wishing bodhicitta, is the mind that thinks, may I become a Buddha for the welfare of sentient beings. And the engaging bodhicitta is that mind after the vows have been taken. So that's, I guess that's another way of describing it. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. But I mean, this is Kamalashla and it's a stage of meditation, so you have to take it seriously, but it might be that it needs interpreting. Sometimes, things can't be taken completely literally. But I guess that would be one way of stating the difference. Up until you've taken the Bodhisattva vows, although you've got bodhicitta, it's the wishing bodhicitta. Once you've taken the vows, then your wishing bodhicitta becomes engaging bodhicitta. That's also a pretty simple idea, isn't it? But I imagine we could take issue with that, disagree, because, for example, ideally speaking, to have the bodhisattva vows, it's taken on the basis of already having bodhicitta, but it's very clearly, very obviously part of our tradition that you take the bodhisattva vow well before actually having bodhicitta. Basically, without sort of hurrying things, when you really feel like not that you would want to keep all of the vows purely, but you wouldn't need to have the confidence, I will be able to keep the vows purely without ever, transgressing them at all. Because, we have these practices for restoring the vows when we do make mistakes, when we do, maybe because of not knowing, or maybe because of a mind overpowered by the mental afflictions, we, do something against the Bodhisattva vows. There are ways of purifying and restoring, but you're allowed to look at those vows, and you can come to the point where you get to the point where you think, yeah, I think I could, I think I would really like to have a go at this. I think I could. I think I really do want to. This is something that I would like to have in my life, for the rest of my life. Yeah. So, there's that tradition. And of course, actually, because of the merit you create by having those vows, like any vows, like day and night, you're creating merit. So the merit is building up. So your mind is becoming stronger, and that actually is going to help you, in that in your attempt, in that practice of trying to generate the real bodhicitta. So it's very something very positive, very useful. So anyway, so it seems like the day that you actually generate bodhicitta is gone from, like being a very strong wish that isn't bodhicitta, but now it's a strong wish that is bodhicitta. You're actually a bodhisattva. You'd already have the bodhisattva vows on that day. So then how could you talk about the bodhicitta until you've taken the vows, being the wishing bodhicitta? And then once you've taken the vows, it's engaging bodhicitta. I don't know. But anyway, so anyway, that's a couple of different ways of differentiating between them. The one that I've heard mostly, which makes sense to me, is the bodhicitta, which is combined with the six perfections, is engaging bodhicitta. When it's not combined with the practice of the six perfections, it's wishing bodhicitta. Okay, so time's more or less up. Maybe we can finish with some dedication prayers, unless there's somebody has a question. If not, then we'll do some dedication. Okay. So dedicating all the virtue of the past, present, future of oneself and others. May the precious supreme bodhicitta not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. Keep going, please. Incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, may you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. I fully dedicate all these virtues to be able to train just like the hero Manjushri, who knows reality, and just like Samantabhadra as well. I fully dedicate all my roots of virtues with the dedication praised as the best by all the gone beyond victorious ones of the 3 times in order to have good conduct. Due to this virtue, may I quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all transmigratory beings without exception to that state. Due to all past, present, and future merits collected by me, the numberless Buddhas and the numberless sentient beings which are completely empty of existing from their own side, may I, who am completely empty of existing from my own side, achieve the state of full enlightenment, which is completely empty of existing from its own side, and lead all sentient beings who are completely empty of existing from their own side to that state which is completely empty of existing from its own side, by myself alone, who am completely empty of existing from my own side. As long as any sentient being has not been liberated from samsara, may I abide in samsara to help them, even though I achieve highest enlightenment. by merely seeing, hearing, thinking about, or remembering me, as well as by touching me or talking to me. May all suffering instantly be pacified, and may there be happiness forever. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang, father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings, through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Venerable, incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for other living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels, and the great waves of Bodhichitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Okay, thanks. Thanks, everybody. Oh, and I've got a feeling, yeah, we don't have a class next week because I'm leaving for the UK on the next day. So then on the 19th, we'll have another class. So next class is on the 19th. Okay.